The cottonmouth may well be the most infamous snake in the United States. Their aggressive attitude is the stuff of legend, and it's said that not only will they attack anyone who gets close, but they'll even chase you down until they deliver their deadly bite. These stories have struck terror in people for generations, and maybe you're among them. But what if I told you that everything you think you know about the cottonmouth is wrong? Cottonmouths have been dubbed the most aggressive snake in the country, and any discussion of them online is met with countless tales of unsuspecting outdoorsmen being attacked out of nowhere. The flash of their bright white mouth the only warning before they receive a brutally painful, venomous bite. People claim that cottonmouths hate humans so much that they will actually chase them away, sometimes pursuing a victim for hundreds of meters to keep them out of their hidden nests. You'll find thousands of these tales online, so if all the stories that people tell about these snakes line up, then surely they must be true, right? Well, as it turns out, the real story of the cottonmouth is a lot different than you'd expect. And today, we're going to show you exactly where people get it wrong and what the truth actually is. My name is Harrison, and this is Evan. We're twin brothers on a mission to help you become an insider in the natural world. And one of the best ways to build that connection is to break down the myths and misunderstandings that people carry about our most feared wildlife. And the cottonmouth sits at the top of that list for many people. This viper is more vilified than almost any other snake in the country, but we've been working with them for years all over the Southeast, and we're going to show you some fascinating things about them that, once you understand, I think will change how you see cottonmouths forever. Today, we're exploring in one of their biggest strongholds, the swamplands of southern Louisiana, a location home to so many of these snakes that we'd have to delete our channel if we went there without getting this video. Finding a cottonmouth here shouldn't be hard, but that's not true everywhere. And around the country, people make some pretty big mistakes about where these animals actually live.
Now, cottonmouths are found throughout the southeastern and south-central United States, but there's a lot of misconceptions about where they live and where they don't. People think that there will be cottonmouths all through the northern, northeastern US, and that's just not true. Pretty much, if you are north of Virginia, the snake you thought was a cottonmouth was not. But around here in Louisiana, this kind of stuff right behind me, look at that. Frogs are calling, that's cottonmouth habitat.
Cottonmouths are wetland denizens, and they can survive in an impressive array of ecosystems. They live everywhere from swamps and bayous to marshes, rivers, and even urban drainage areas. So in this region, if you're in any habitat around water, then there's a good chance that cottonmouths could be around. As far as where they live, these vipers have a pretty expansive range across the southeast, stretching from Texas in the west to Florida in the east. That part of their distribution is pretty well understood, but for many people in the US, the northern extent of their range is the subject of a lot of debate. We grew up in eastern Pennsylvania, and for our whole lives, we've heard people claim that they run into cottonmouths all the time. And this has been echoed in many places we've been across the Northeast and the Midwest. People swear up and down that they run into these snakes as far north as New York and Michigan. And it's not uncommon to get warnings that there are hordes of them throughout pretty much the entire eastern half of the country. But take a look at this. This is a range map created with data from 9 scientific studies and extensive occurrence records from online sources like iNaturalist. And it gives quite an accurate depiction of where cottonmouths actually range in the US. As you can see, if you're north of Virginia on the East Coast or southern Missouri in the Midwest, you're not running into any cottonmouths. So why is it that so many people claim to have seen them? That all comes down to cases of mistaken identity, because there are a lot of snakes in this country, and without the right knowledge, telling many of them apart can be a challenge. Luckily for us, as we pushed further into the swamp, Evan spotted the perfect species to help us show you what to look for, as they get misidentified as cottonmouths more than almost any other.
Oh, he didn't do anything. Hey, buddy. All right, now this is a plain-bellied water snake, and you can see that bulge in his belly. He just ate probably some frogs or fish, perhaps, so we don't want to hang on to him for too long. But this is a really nice snake, and one we really wanted to find because they're often mistaken for cottonmouths. People see a snake down by the water and immediately assume that they're looking at a cottonmouth, but actually, many species of snakes will hang out down by the water. Water snakes especially are prevalent, but we really want to show you some of the differences between water snakes and cottonmouths so you can be better able to ID them. We really want to drive home the fact that it's not just cottonmouths that are hanging out here down by the water. Check him out, bro. He's quite cute. This is rather small for a plain-bellied water snake, and there are some features that you can instantly pick out if you know what to look for to tell that this is not a cottonmouth. I would say plain-bellied water snakes are probably the easiest to confuse, just because they lack the pattern that so many Neurodia have. That's a really defining characteristic of that group of snakes. However, if you look at the head of this animal, sometimes water snakes will flare out their jaws to make sort of a triangle-shaped head, and that's another reason why people often confuse these snakes for cottonmouths. But he has a nice oval-shaped head, really big eyes positioned on the top of his head. The big eyes and round pupils are a good giveaway that you're looking at a water snake. You can also look on this individual. He's a great example. You have these bars on the lips, on the face. That's very distinctive of this genus, Neurodia, our North American water snakes. A lot of them have that feature. Cottonmouths almost always will not. But as we've been saying, really what you need to understand is that just like any single identifying feature, you never want to rely on just one. You need to know the body shape, the habits, the behavior, all of those things in tandem help you make IDs safely. Absolutely. There are many different species of snakes that will live entirely around these aquatic habitats, and even if they're not water snakes like this guy, all sorts of different snakes and really most animals will come to the water to drink. So this idea that as soon as you see a snake by the water's edge, it's a venomous cottonmouth and it has to be killed is absolutely not true. And really, if you're not sure you're down by the water and you see a snake that you can't quite get a read on, just give it a little bit of space, and whether it's venomous or not, you are in literally no danger. So we're gonna get this guy back so he can finish digesting that meal. He's right out here in the clearing. There he goes. That's what we like to see.
Properly IDing a cottonmouth can be difficult because their coloration is extremely variable. Juveniles tend to have prominent banding or other markings, while adults often have more faded patterning or even fully solid coloration. This means that you can't rely on their color or pattern alone to recognize a cottonmouth, but using other physical characteristics like their thick, heavy-set bodies and large, sharply angular heads can help distinguish them from non-venomous species. Many of their best diagnostic features are actually on the head, and though this isn't the easiest place to see up close, a good thing to look for is the dark horizontal stripe that runs across the side of their face, which most cottonmouths will have. Also, their pupils are vertical, unlike the round pupils of a water snake. The biggest facial difference between cottonmouths and non-venomous snakes is their heat-sensing pits, those two little holes between their eyes and nostrils, a feature they share with other pit vipers like rattlesnakes and copperheads. Now, of course, these ID tips are useful in theory, but practically speaking, no one is expecting you to look a snake in the eyes just to see if it's venomous or not. It takes time and practice to reliably ID snakes with visual and behavioral cues. So when in doubt, just remember that a little distance goes a long way to keep yourself safe around any snake. Finding a cottonmouth also takes practice, because even though they're abundant in this region, navigating this habitat isn't easy. Thankfully, we had help. Our friend and local expert Zachary Gray brought us right to a known hotspot for cottonmouths, and the experienced eyes of our friend Emilio Pazmino helped immensely as we road cruised through the dense swamp. Eventually, we hit a fallen tree that had blocked the road, so we decided to continue on foot, and not long after, Emilio called out that he had spotted our target.
Really? How big?
Oh yeah, he's actually kind of not huge, but he's an adult.
All right, I'm gonna get him out into the open.
Get your weight.
I still have eyes on him. Kind of have him, but it's precarious because he's caught in stuff. Yeah.
We gotta make sure there's not another one here as well.
Yep.
There is another one. Look at that.
Oh,
Exactly
yeah.
why I said that. Juvenile right here.
Yep.
You cannot get complacent nor lose focus when you're hunting venomous stuff, because look at this. If I had kept my eye on that snake, would have stepped on that baby. You cannot lose focus.
Let me just gently move the baby out of the way.
I'm still gonna go for that adult.
Yeah. Should we just let the baby go?
Yeah. Try and get that bigger one.
All right.
I didn't. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, he's still here.
He's going down.
Oh, he's getting under something. He's getting under. Careful, careful.
Yep. There we go.
Nice.
Got him.
All right, bring him out. This is a bad place to be right now.
Very much so. Watch your step, guys. There is more than one in here. There we go. That's a decent little moccasin. All right.
Bring him around. Sweet.
There we go. This is what we're looking for. A nice adult cottonmouth. All right.
Oh man, this is all poison ivy here too.
Nice snake. Good spot, Emilio.
All right, now you just saw that he was trying to escape, but now we've got him into a more controlled setting, and he kind of realizes that that's no longer an option. There's big heat signatures all around him that he can detect with those heat-sensing pits at the front of his face. He knows he's surrounded, so now he's on the defensive. He's curled up, he's trying to make himself as small of a target as possible so that we can't get to him without him getting those fangs into us first.
Exactly.
The biggest myth that is circulated about cottonmouths is that they are aggressive animals.
Yep.
They're going to be attacking people as soon as you get close, chasing you away from their lair or their den or whatever people want to say. Everything we hear from people who live around these animals is that they're trying to kill you, and that is just not the case. You saw when we grabbed him, his only reaction was to try and get away. He didn't strike once. Now, that does have a lot to do with the conditions today. It's kind of cool, we're undercover, and anytime you interact with a snake, they're wild animals. There are going to be lots of different variables that affect how they behave. The reason he's sitting still like this is because he doesn't have all that much energy to move away from us. He's curled here because he feels more comfortable with his body in tight. We couldn't get a hand on this snake even if we wanted to. But that is never something that anyone should try and do. If you see one of these snakes, their main priority is to get away from the thing that they think is their predator. Exactly. Now, if they are curled up like this and they've given up on trying to escape, what they're gonna do is rely on one of their most famous defense mechanisms, which is gaping. They get that name cottonmouth because the interior of their mouth is bright white. And if they're faced with a predator, they're gonna open that mouth and that bright flash of color should be enough to startle a predator, and it acts as aposematic coloration, warning colors, telling a predator that he's dangerous and you should not mess with him for any reason, and we certainly won't.
This gaping behavior is pretty effective against the cottonmouth's predators, but unfortunately, humans don't always get the right message. People tend to assume the worst when it comes to venomous snakes, so as soon as they see a snake open its mouth, they immediately think it's trying to bite them. Ironically though, that's actually the opposite of what the cottonmouth is trying to do. Cottonmouths use gaping as a warning to stop conflict before it starts, just like how rattlesnakes rattle their tails to dissuade predators from attacking. These behaviors literally evolved as a way to avoid having to strike, which makes sense when you think about it. Even with a powerful venom, lunging headfirst at a predator isn't exactly the best way to keep yourself safe. You can also tell they're not trying to bite because they generally don't move their heads when they gape. They want the warning to be as visible as possible so predators get the message loud and clear. But even though cottonmouths prefer to gape instead of strike, they're not bluffing. Push them too far and they'll bite as a last resort, and the results won't be pretty.
This snake is armed with a potent cytotoxic venom, so if you were to receive a bite from a cottonmouth, the first thing you're going to experience is intense pain as the venom works its way into your cells and starts to destroy them. You'll get muscle damage, tissue damage, as well as intense swelling. Even some necrosis can happen with these snakes, and it is not a good time. Now, one thing I do want to note about the venom is that cottonmouths don't have neurotoxic properties in their venom, which means that the effect
effects are largely going to be localized to the area of the bite site, and unless you experience anaphylaxis and have an allergic reaction, you're not going to be seeing systemic effects with the bite of this snake. Now, of course, that does not mean we're going to be taking any more liberties with this animal than we would with any other kind of venomous snake. This is 100% a medically significant animal that we have to treat with the utmost respect and care. Absolutely. Now, that leads to the question, what should you do if you were to encounter a snake just like this? We know they're not aggressive. They're not going to come after you. Essentially, the best way to keep yourself and the snake safe is just to keep distance between you and the animal. Because the truth is, as long as you're out of this snake's strike range, which is roughly about 2/3 of its body length, there's literally no way for it to hurt you if you're not in range of that hardware, the venomous fangs that they use to deliver a bite. But at the distance we are from this animal right now, there's literally nothing he could do to us before we can just get out of the way. And that's exactly what you will want to do if you ever find yourself in this scenario. They're amazing snakes, they're beautiful animals, and they're a species that we love to appreciate, and you can do the same as long as you're wise around them, you respect the power that these animals hold, and just give them the distance to keep them as comfortable as possible in what is for him a terrifying interaction. Exactly right. Any defensive behavior you see from a cottonmouth is not going to be because they're angry or mean, it's because they're scared. They're on the defensive. This animal, at this size, he's still facing a few predators. An alligator, a bird of prey, even a large snapping turtle could potentially view this animal as a decent meal. So when he sees something so much larger than himself, he's trying to protect his own life. That's all it is, and frankly, I think it's valid. We should give these animals the respect that they're living creatures. They're just trying to survive another day. So if you don't provoke them and give them a reason to think that their life is about to be over, they won't have to defend it with lethal force. And speaking of lethal force, one of the most common ways for people to be bitten by cottonmouths is when they're actively trying to kill them. So the very last thing you should do in an encounter with a cottonmouth is try to kill it. Anything that puts you closer to the animal puts you in harm's way. If you give them space, they'll give you space. You're the predator in this interaction, as hard as that is to believe for some people out there. We are the aggressors, not the snakes.
Now, this is an interaction I really wanted to talk a little bit about. Look at what this snake is doing. He's facing me. Right now, he's stopped, but he was.
There he is.
Look at this. What this snake is doing, there is not a hint of aggression, even defensiveness really, in his behavior right now. He's moving slow and steady. He's not twitching his tail. He's not flaring out his jaws. The only reason at all that he's coming right towards me is because I am between him and his habitat. We found him going this way. That's his home. I'm literally just an obstacle in his way. If this snake were aggressive, there would be 7 different behaviors I could point to indicate how he's feeling. Right now, all he is trying to do is get away. I know already. We're gonna hear the comments. He's chasing you. He's trying to bite you. No, he's not. I'm in his way. And that's the thing we really want to drive home with this. Everything in an encounter with a cottonmouth is about preventing them from feeling the need to defend themselves. But even now, when I have him slightly raised up on the hook here, he's still not acting in a way that I would call truly defensive. His body is still cold. That's actually what he was doing when we found him, was thermoregulating, getting a bit of energy from the sun so he can go out and hunt. This is not an animal who is at all interested in trying to hurt us. And I'm gonna put him down, get him to curl up, because we really want to talk now, not about the aggression and the danger. We want to talk about what these snakes are really out here doing to flip the script on what everyone thinks about these animals, because they're just not the monsters that they're made out to be.
The idea that cottonmouths will chase people is without a doubt the most common myth that we hear about them. Even on this video, I guarantee we're gonna get comments from people insisting that they've had this happen. Now, we've been working with cottonmouths in the wild for over 5 years, and in dozens of encounters, I can tell you that we have never seen anything that even resembles an aggressive chase. And that fact has been echoed by well over 100 of our scientist and naturalist colleagues. But even still, there are thousands of people who claim to have been attacked in this way. So how do you explain all the stories? Well, diving deeper into cottonmouth biology can actually give us some answers. See, probably the coolest thing about cottonmouths is that they are the only aquatic pit vipers in the entire world. the only ones that not only swim confidently, but can actually hunt underwater. For a group of snakes that usually operate as ambush predators, they've totally broken the viper mold and become masterful active hunters in aquatic environments. But it's the adaptations they need to do it that sometimes get them into trouble. Their thick, angular bodies and undulating movement style are perfectly adapted to propel them through the water. But they've made many populations of cottonmouths surprisingly awkward and sluggish on land. Because of this, when they're threatened, we've found that they'll often move erratically and quickly towards whatever body of water is closest, which could easily be interpreted as chasing if that happens to be behind you or in your direction. Cottonmouths feel most comfortable in the water, and remember, they're terrified of you, especially considering the fact that though their venom is dangerous, it could never incapacitate you before you could take them out many times over. The truth is, these are just not aggressive snakes, and the instances of so-called chasing are usually misinterpretations of them trying desperately to get away from you. Another variable to consider is that cottonmouths are one of the few vipers that will actually scavenge for dead animals and carrion, so there have been some rare cases where fishermen have reported the snakes pursuing a fish they were reeling in or carrying. This, though justifiably startling, is also far from being aggressive and trying to hurt you. Cottonmouths have to survive in environments that are very challenging for a viper, so you can't really blame them for taking an easy meal when they can. If you take a closer look at their biology, you can see that the whole chasing myth comes down to a lot of misunderstandings about their behavior. But to prove our point and show you the real truth about these infamous snakes, we're gonna have to take this interaction one step further.
Now what we want to do is actually get this snake up off the ground in hand to prove that these snakes are not the monsters that they are so often made out to be. Now all I'm gonna try and do is just gently get this guy up. This is actually good. Move it in that direction. There it is. You can see, even when we're pushing the limits further than any person should, you should never try to replicate what you're seeing here. This is for educational purposes only. We have worked with these animals for many years, but as you're seeing, even with a hand on this animal, for all he knows, he's being carried off by a predator about to get eaten. He is still not freaking out. He's barely even flicking his tongue. All he's trying to do is get a read on basically how much danger am I in right now? What do I need to do to survive this interaction? Now notice what he just did. As soon as I shifted the position of my hand, he turned to face right at me. He's got his eyes and those heat-sensing pits locked onto me because he wants to make sure that he is in control as much as possible. Cottonmouths are alert animals. They're going to be tracking you as you move by. So if I move like this, he stays on me. But he's still calm. This is not an animal who is trying to hurt us, and this is what we wanted to really get across. Cottonmouths are hated across their range. They're killed almost any time they get close to a person, but it's just not necessary. You can see in everything that this animal is doing that he's relaxed. He is not trying to fight off a predator in this moment. He's actually about as calm as I've ever seen a cottonmouth be as we've been working with them. Now, what's really important to understand about these snakes, we've been saying over and over again, they're not using their venom for aggression, they're not using it to attack people. So that begs the question, why do they need such a strong venom in the first place? And the answer is, it's the most important tool that these animals have to catch their prey and get a meal in. Exactly right. These are not fast-moving animals. They're going to be catching things, for the most part, that are much more agile, much more quick-moving than they are. Things like frogs, fish, even rodents out here would be on the menu for him. And they're a heavy-bodied snake. You can see how fat he is. That's a good sign. He's getting enough to eat. And the only reason for that is because of that venom. They're ambush predators. They'll be waiting for something to come along, and then as soon as they get within strike range, they'll reach out, overpower it with that venom, and then be able to get that meal in that they so desperately need. And without it, they would not be the incredible and the successful animals that they are. This is one of the most abundant snakes that we've come across, and one of the primary reasons for that is their venom. It's not a weapon meant to hurt you. It's the tool that helps them survive, and it makes them one of the most impressive animals that we can find out here in Louisiana. And I am thrilled that we finally have the chance to show the true nature of these snakes. If he wanted to bite, he already would have tried. This is all about him getting away from us. Absolutely. We want to be able to clear the name of these snakes because it's so important that we learn to coexist with these animals. They're playing a critical role in this ecosystem, both as predators, controlling the populations of lots of other species below them in the food web, but also snakes like this are an important prey source for many species as well. So we really need them to be doing well in these habitats, producing more individuals so that the population will continue to grow, because these are such amazing and important animals out here. He's being so cooperative too. We couldn't have asked for a better ambassador to show you how inoffensive and special these animals really are. He's ready to go. We've gotten everything we need to clear the name of these animals. One of my favorite parts of any interaction, if you can believe it, is getting these amazing animals back into the wild. Now, he was right here by this tree. He was. Didn't have to take him far because he's so cooperative. This is such an incredible experience. I'm just gonna see if we can put him right back here by the log where he was curled up originally. Thank you, buddy, for being such a good sport about this. You've been an amazing ambassador for your species. And just like that, he's back in habitat where he belongs. That was awesome, bro. We did it.
The bottom line with cottonmouths is that they're not the aggressive monsters we make them out to be. They're just misunderstood animals, trying their best to survive in a harsh and difficult world. The real irony of people hating and fearing cottonmouths is that we are a much bigger threat to them than they could ever be to us, both from direct killing and especially the destruction of their habitat. Habitat loss is the biggest cause of human cottonmouth conflict in the first place, because think about it. If we destroy all of the good habitat, they'll have no choice but to move into human spaces just to survive. So whether you love these snakes like we do, or you don't and you'd rather they stay out of your way, it's in your best interest to protect their habitat. It's entirely possible to coexist peacefully with cottonmouths, and all you need to do is remember that if you respect their space, they'll happily respect yours too. But cottonmouths are far from the only animals in the US that people get things wrong about, and arguably no species has it worse than the brown recluse. Chances are high that you've heard terrifying stories about these spiders melting someone's flesh off with a single bite. But that can't be true, right? To find out, check out this video, where we get up close and personal with a brown recluse to see if their true nature matches their fearsome reputation. And with that, we hope you enjoyed, and we'll see you in the next one.